What's up, everybody? Today we're going to talk about my latest track called Already Mine, released on Jade City Records. A lot of the original inspiration for this track is actually about self-awareness and acknowledging the dark clouds in our lives, and that's not the end of the story, that we can rise above simply by exploring, writing music, creating. So this track has about 6 different versions. I'll show you the version that was probably the first strongest idea I had. This is also the same one that I sent to Amanda. Was the version that was here for basically the longest time. I kind of hit a stopping point and didn't really know what I was going to do. I started sending it to vocalists, and that's what kind of formed later versions. The only thing that really stayed was this thing, which is just wavetable and this analog ride. Yeah, this is drift. It's got 2 oscillators, just like little plucky stuff. I ended up adding to it more. The other thing that stayed was this multi-layer rack that I made. Piano and Utopia. Just like heavily filtered. Some of these effects also stayed. I also have this like chime thing. This is a sample library called Kinetic Metal. It's an older sample library, but I like it. It's got a lot of cool textures in it. You can hear. It's a really cool sound. And you can change the metallicness of it or the different kinds of metals that it crossfades between. So by this point, I had gotten the first vocal idea back, and that started to steer the track away from my original idea, but in a good way. In fact, one of the first lyrics that Amanda has about the ominous cloud was something that was relating to an original image I had about this song. That idea about being kind of stuck in this dark cloud and wanting to rise above, I thought that was really cool. So in this version, you'll notice like a lot more textures and things like that, because I was trying to imagine what it would be like being in this cloud, floating in this cloud. But anyway, yeah, this version is a lot more experimental.
Ominous clouds overhead.
it was super rough. I was trying to like piece a whole bunch of stuff together, and I wasn't sure what was going to stay or what wasn't going to stay. I just knew that this wasn't going to be the final, so it took a lot of pressure off me. But you'll notice some stuff from before, like this thing. This time I added a serum layer to it, which is just like this little wavetable I strung together. Crazy panning bandpass. Just like some nice movement to get it like really, really swimmy. Now I'm adding more counter melody stuff. This patch from Chromaphone that I edited. The metal chime thing that I showed from before, I actually brought it into this little embellishment layer. And I'm using a different patch. This one called Leaky Pipes. But it's cool. I have this knob here called Flick, which you can see changes the metal. Kind of adds a little flicky metal texture to that. I have some other parameters here too through Wormhole. I think that's, oh yeah, it's the clean one. M transformer, yeah. Like literally transforming some of the upper harmonics. And then I am coloring it with a little bit of chroma. I got this thing from AAS Player. Epicycles patch. Yeah, just with some auto pan. So instead of the piano pedal in the beginning, I am using this big bass hit. Just kind of automating some parameters in Razor, reverb. Oh yeah, and then we have this sound in the beginning. This is actually a sound from a plugin called Tactic by Glitch Machines. But I threw on pitch map colors using the scale shift mode. Throw on some delay, some reverb, some OTT. This is the newer trash. It just made it like really thick and interesting, especially with this drive knob. So the biggest thing from the verse is probably the chords, the bass, and the drums. That kind of became like the principal chord progression. And I'm just using this funky wavetable I made like a few years ago. This phase dispersed sine wave at 0.5 hertz. I don't even remember how I made that. Single cycle wave. And then I have like this saw with quantized to kind of make it like a little gritty and messy. This LFO shape. Yeah, just on a couple filters. Using remap for like a little attack. It's not showing the, oh there it is. And then the spectral resonator is what's making those like little pretties. Because I have it in granular mode here on 256 harmonics, and I'm feeding the chords from here into the spectral resonator. And I just kind of mix in the granules there. So what's making it Dorian is this B sharp, which is basically C natural, especially in the last chord. Triangle Moog preset. I think I modified it a little bit. Noise 2 from Denise Audio with a 1 fall, so it's like barely adding a little bit of blue noise. So without it, just adds a little bit of noise. I really like that. And then I'm kind of using a little bit of multiband saturation here. Spectre. Yeah, just using like an analog. I think this is an analog saw wave and then a regular saw wave. A little bit more work here from operator. Just making it even more gulpy. This little answer. Kind of doing this like little plucky thing. And then I got serum. This is a wave I made in Razor a while back. Just have a little bit of compressor on it. It's just scanning through that. And some interesting filtering going on here. I just thought it was cool. In fact, that specific melody is like all over the song. Yeah, that melody is just everywhere. So yeah, the drums, I think the drums are probably the most interesting thing about all of this. Aquatic loop. I was exploring like wet sounding drums, you know, that same idea of like being in the clouds, having rain droplets kind of hit you in the face. There's a creator who makes really cool sample libraries called Loops de la Creme, and he has this aquatic drum set one, and I'm using his Groove Mix Mystic patch. Just like really unique and interesting. I got a little bit of black box saturation on it, and I'm using BX delay on the out. Just cool because you can kind of shape the delays here. More aquatic drums, this splashy thing. I got some reverse stuff from an Awaken pack. It's like fully metal stuff I'm just reversing. So the kick is from a splice pack called Underground Dubstep, I believe it is. And I'm layering it with a old Cymatics EDM kick. Just gives it a little bit more transient. Nocturnal so that I can tune it. Some all pass filtering here to kind of this mid range. Saturation, filter, yeah, usual stuff. I think I kept this thing. Yeah, this thing from 85 by default. Like this really beautiful atmosphere. I'm pitching it up 9 semitones. And then I'm transposing it. And then I'm throwing on auto pan and reverb. I just thought that was a cool way to kind of like lead into it. Some rain, some more wet stuff. Oh, and then when she says thunder and lightning, I actually have a thunder sound panning. Just a wavetable I made called Clayhouse. Yeah, and it's just heavily filtered. My eyes on the horizon, still climbing over the mountainside. Behind the thunder and lightning, gonna find my way home in time. So this version is pretty much the same. I'm just gonna play through so you can see how it was evolving. Crazy, So yeah, you can see I was I was really trying a lot of different stuff. All right, so this is the version that we landed on. So yeah, pretty much the same thing, but now we added this layer. This glassy layer, which is just a remapped saw and a remapped square. Yeah, so the rise and lead into the drop and through the second drop is much different now. So the drop opens up with this. Just razor. Kind of moving the comb peak cutoff and the low pass filter. Dynamic EQ on the mid band to create like a little bit more of this kind of comb filtery effect with some vowel changes here. A little bit more pitch map colors. And then a little bit of shifting. Yeah, layering that with a chime sample. And then one of my samples. It's like a atmospheric sample. Just a really steep notch there. I just like that cool little melodic hit. This is a sound from Splice, but without the resonator and corpus. Just a cool way to make it thick and resonant. I'm layering it with this AU5 sample, just resampled, and I kind of like did beat repeat and stuttering on it. And then another one of my samples with M Transformer, just kind of adding that shimmery bell tone thing. Yeah, this thing. So this is actually throughout the song. But what this is from a version I had actually deleted. It was an old version I deleted, so I had it saved still from a big stack. And I just put the synths in there as well as the basses, and then I'm using it just kind of like just moving through it. This is just cool fill stuff. I really like that. I also got this thing. This is just stuff from other bass jams. Yeah, you can hear. Just other bass jam stuff, and I'm using a phaser from Serum Effects and some beat repeat. Yeah. This is like a growl from a growl jam. There's a couple more sounds in here I want to talk about. This thing, if I solo this is Serum. So without the distortion, sounds like this. This is actually a saw wave. It's that trick that we learned in school bass to morph, I'm sorry, Serum Masterclass. No, set phases from the other oscillator, sorry. So it's going to set the phases from oscillator B, which in this case is a dispersed wave. It gives it kind of that wet sound, but when you distort it, nice even buzzy spectrum there, and then kind of distorting it some more with some more phase distortion. That's the top layer. The bottom layer is more sublab. Just a gulpy thing on this cut through anything preset. Just a cool like little pre-shifted thing. Yeah. This like triplet. So this is from a bass jam I did. A little bit of frequency modulation. Peak EQ filtering here. Amp. Makes it buzzy. Chroma to kind of bring out those tones. Oh, it looks like I'm doing the reshifting trick here. The top band has some spec ops. Just changes the texture and the timbre, and then some more EQ, multi-band saturation. Kind of laying into that pretty hard actually. And then changing the vowels again. That's the main layer. And I'm morphing it on imprint smooth with another one of my samples. Alright, so the chord stack. The bass is just Razor. Some more transformer actually changing the way it sounds. Without the filters, this is what it sounds like. Yeah, just some pulse to saws, but if you kind of move the cutoff of the comb peak, throw on M transformer, makes it sound like bell tones. If you transform the upper harmonics and mess with a little bit of the spectral envelope there, that's the first layer. Some serum, just some plucky saws with the fundamental removed. This harmonic, it's very simple bass, but it puts the work in. Dune. Taking Dream Sunset and changing it quite a bit. Yeah, just a bunch of voices here. Very dry sounding. Stacking it with serum. Yeah, this is just saws with compressor and this little like notch filter, just kind of going back and forth. It's from the collection category here, and it's the amber with some warp. More Dune, except it's an init patch. I just wanted like not so spread out, not so detuned tones. Yeah, just kind of like, that's why I called it rock tone, because I was kind of exploring, yeah, like rock sounds. And then wavetable. Very simple little plucky tones, and then doing it again. Just using basic shapes. Yeah, I like that it was kind of like a rhythm guitar almost. I like it. It's like very like versatile, very dry, but also full. And it's also not too buzzy. Yeah, using some tape stop effects. So I'm adding this little tiny, this old patch I made called Pluck Raindrop. It's just a simple pluck, glossy piano. Color tank patch I made from before. Electric. Yeah, I like to call it the embellishment layer, because they just kind of all work together. Now we got this new thing. This noisy layer. This is just serum, square wave, and a saw wave. Just some effects. Looks like stomp box distortion. I like it. Very even even buzzy layer. And then this keytar I made a while back, it's actually 2 keytars put together. So if you haven't noticed, I used the melody that I had from this multi, you know, in the earlier parts of the song. So that was my principal approach for this drop. Which I think was the glue that I was looking for before. It's also a much simpler drop. This little whir sound is actually quite important. If you turn off the effects, yeah, I'm doing coarse pitch for A and B. They just kind of run alongside each other. There's the high one. Just a nice in-between. Yeah, so the second drop, it opens up with this thing. Yeah, so this is like 3 parts. Yeah, it is this funky little wave I made here, followed by a triangle wave with just some heavy filtering. Actually sounds kind of ridiculous by itself, but we got some more remap where I'm flattening the phases here on oscillator B, and then I am using frequency modulation into that. Top band has overdrive. I'm morphing it with this layer here, which are samples from that's actually from the session I had showed you guys before. I took out the entire bass stem and was kind of using it like, you know, just a big pool, a big bass pool that I could select from. With that, just kind of on and off occasionally in different ways. The second part here is just operator. It's kind of adding this weirdness to it. But when they play together, you don't hear it. This thing that I call the pluck offset. This is pretty cool. So this is actually operator. Yeah, so it's just like this little tiny FM pluck. That one's a little bit more glassy sounding. And then I am adding a little tiny bit of white noise that I had exported out of RX. Like really tiny. That's all that is. And then I'm pulling up M Transformer yet again. Just makes it a little bit more like a bell tone amp. That really distorts the heck out of it. A preset called Table Tennis, barely being used. That just adds like a little bit of room to it. The actual reverb, where I am automating the dry wet. M center to kind of mess with the stereo imaging. Transient shaping. Some EQ. But together, I just thought it was unique. Two 4-min oscillators in low quality mode and comb peak. These effects here kind of sounds like that. What this is Serum Effects, Phaser Filter Chorus Compressor. Yeah, this bandpass notch mode and chroma. Serum. I have this wavetable called Saw Mega Pass Dispersed. It's a dispersed saw with a bunch of, I think, all pass filters on it. I can't remember how I made it. Yeah, just kind of scanning through that. But together, layering it with Chime's ASMR sounds here. And then just an Atmos sound I have, like slowly fading in. Oh yeah, and then I got this thing. Using some AU5 wavetables, comb notch. Yeah, using sync and like wavetable warping and all that kind of stuff. Basically like a big scan knob. Yeah, just following the pitch bending I got going on. But really, this is a combo. Yeah, so I'm just kind of like moving through those two basses in interesting ways. That's most of this drop actually is. It's pretty much just that. I do have a couple other sounds here. I have some stuff from Skybreak, Pitch Map Colors. That's actually doing a lot of work. An AU5 sample. This is from Cryptochrome. Another Skybreak sample. Alright, this is a sound from Splice. It's an impact. Except I'm using Redux is what's really making it sound like that. I'm also kind of cutting it a little bit differently. White noise hit just for the attack. I'm just kind of pitching it differently, and I threw on some format shifting there. Yeah, so it just kind of moves through the different parts, and me just automating and doing different things with all the stuff you guys have already heard. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to talk about the kick and snare. Kick I made in kick 2. Some more disperser. Just makes it a little bit more gulpy. Snare isn't really mine, it's chime, but I did add this little cymatics click. And I'm throwing on some reverb. I am shifting it down a little bit. Yeah, I do like the attack on it, but I want it to be like thicker and deeper and kind of be more like this little point. And then I just kind of like dialed in the tail of it. So the rest is pretty much the same. I actually got rid of what would have been the second verse. I kept this little swim bass part in here with my rising chirp. The third drop is simply a variation of the first drop. Actually ended up being a shorter song, but it was great. I liked it. It basically captured everything that I was going for. Alright, so I did want to talk about how I mastered this. This macro is the hard clipper, yes. Activating this just on the drops, just to help out the limiter. I got about 4 gain being pumped into there, and I'm using 4 times oversampling. It's on transparent mode. I am using, instead of true peak limiting, I am using negative 0.1, so basically negative 0.10 dB out. And just before all this, I have Soothe. It's barely at 40% mix. A tiny bit of EQ. I mean, this is like barely anything. This is just 0.5, which was kind of telling me that the mix in the entire track was pretty satisfactory. I liked it. I felt like everything I did just sounded terrible. I am doing multiband compression, limiting my subs under 100 Hertz, and I got these settings on each band. You guys can take a look out if you want. A little bit of parallel compression. Yeah, I was just doing that to taste. A little bit of dynamic EQ. This is kind of working a little bit. It's not really doing much. That's all it took. Hopefully that sounds good on the video. I have no idea. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, as always, let me know. Happy producing.